Byongo was so angry that he could bite and break a cup. Then he chewed it in his mouth without feeling any pain. The reason was that he was driven into the point of anger that he could do nothing about. Although Bundo was a team inspector in the case, he was being ordered around by the rich and powerful. Moreover, he had to help them cover up their evil crimes. When needed, they called Bongdu. And when Byongo was no longer of any use, they kicked him into a corner. Finally, Bingo's endurance reached its limit. He stood up to fight back. Bongdo was a famous police inspector in this city. He often hung out with gangsters to gather information and investigate the case. His appearance looked more like a criminal than a criminal hunter. Because he was so focused on his work, the young do not have time to care about his appearance. He also had to take care of his wife who was terminally ill and bedridden. Seeing her suffering from the disease made him lose his mind to worry about other things. His life revolved around work and his wife in the hospital. But that was not what gave Bongdu a headache. My wife's brother, who was the mayor of the city, was named Young Pill. However, Young Pill did not help Bundo at all. On the contrary, Young Pill took advantage of Bundo's status to help him do wrong things. The place where he lived was not very developed. There were frequent power struggles. The person leading the race was Mayor Young Pill, a man who could use any means to achieve his goals. On the outside, he always showed himself to be someone who always wanted this city to develop so that the people's lives could become better. But on the inside, he was always secretly committing countless crimes. Young Pill could step on others just to have a chance to rise up. Even though he was accused of violating the right to vote, he kept it all a secret. This gave him the opportunity to show off and gain the trust of the people. It can be said that in this area, Young Pill is the boss. However, once he commits a crime, someone will notice. The prosecutors are the ones who hold power. They intended to arrest him. However, they still failed to let him go free. Sometimes there were no witnesses. Sometimes there was not enough evidence to convict him. Young Pill was able to do that thanks to money and Bongdu's help. Baidu used his job to help Young Pill hide all the crimes. However, Young Pill never showed gratitude to Byongo, but he used it to become more and more arrogant and brutal. My job was to clean up everything after Young Pill had done it. Byongo had to consider it as his duty that he was not allowed to ask for or refuse. It is a fact that when anyone does evil, they will have to pay the price one day. But retribution came to Byongdu, not Young Pill. That day, Bongdu went to meet a drug addict to pay his salary. It was the drug addict who helped Bongdu silence the witness and save Young Pill from prison. Everything would have been fine if Byongo's colleague had not appeared. That was Bongdu's close colleague named Miho. The police did not care what was going on between them, but when they saw a drug addict walking around, Miho immediately rushed to arrest him. Then Bongo's superior, Sancho, appeared by chance at the scene. It seemed that Sancho knew what Byongo had done all this time, because he was jealous of Bongo being supported by Young Pill. Sancho always tried to make things difficult for him. I had no other choice but to go against his superiors to give the addict a chance to escape. If Young Pill finds out, Bio's career will be over. However, the addict is a brainless scoundrel. While on the run, he took the opportunity to use drugs, and then started causing trouble. A person high on drugs like him definitely can't control his actions. He doesn't even care about the police. Even if Byongo punches him, he won't wake up. There was a conflict between Bongdu and Sancho at that time. While Bondo wanted to let the addict leave, Sancho wanted to use him to ask for money from Young Pill. The two of them struggled back and forth, accidentally causing the safety fence to pop open. As a result, Sancho fell down and died on the spot. Luckily, Bongdu quickly created a fake scene and blamed the addict. If this was exposed, Bongdu's life would be over, and his sick wife lying there would have no one to take care of her. So, Byongo had to become a real bad guy to cover up these things. However, there were some people who didn't want Bongdu alone, so they deliberately reopened the case. Even normal people know that a drug addict wouldn't actively attack the police. Everyone knew that there must be something hidden in this matter. Surely the prosecutors knew too. They came to Bongdu to investigate, but they couldn't get any results. Not only that, they also constantly followed Bongo's movements to find loopholes. Everyone knew about the relationship between Bongdu and Young Pill. What Bongdu for Young Pill couldn't escape the eyes of those who wanted to investigate. To avoid these things, Bongdu resigned as an inspector and switched to working for Young Pill. Byongo's purpose was to use Young Pill's name to protect him, but Byongo didn't expect Young Pill to betray him. After Byongo caused the problem, Young Pill immediately showed his attitude. On the surface, Young Pill tried to calm Byongo down so that he could continue working for him, but in reality, Young Pill intended to kick Byongo aside because Bongo was naive. He believed that Young Pill would help him. That was the reason why Bondo refused to help the prosecutor expose Young Pill's crimes. But Bong do not expect that in the past he had only threatened others. But this time he was in danger. Prosecutor Jiangsu had grasped Byongo's weakness, so there was no reason for him to let Byongdu go. Baidu was the only one who could help Jiangsu find evidence to prove Young Pill's crimes. Because Jiangsu had evidence of what Byongo did for Young Pill, Bai thought about his wife who was in the hospital suffering pain every day. So he followed Jiangsu's words. Even though Jiangsu seemed to be joking, Bio did not dare to resist. Byongo even had to kneel down and beg Jiangsu not to let his wife know. In return, Byongo will help Jiangsu collect evidence of Young Pill's crime. But no matter how much of a bastard Bondo is, he will not betray his brothers, no matter how badly Young Pill treats Byongo. Young Pill has helped him a lot. Bai cannot betray Young Pill, so Byongo thought of a way to get out of this power struggle. Bai introduced his colleague, Miho, to be Young's bodyguard instead. Young Pill wanted to keep Bong Du by his side because he was afraid that one day Byongo would betray him. From the beginning, Young Pill was always wary of Bong Du and never trusted him. Bai Du realized that, so he wanted to keep a safe distance from Young Pill, but Byongo did not expect that it was his wrong choice. What Young Pill did accidentally caused him to lose his close colleague, Miho. They had worked together on missions before. Bai needed a guarantee that everything he did for Young Pill would be erased. Only then would he feel secure and not be afraid of being abandoned. But Bondo was too naive when he thought that only he knew how to calculate. From the beginning, Jansu only wanted to take advantage of Bondo. Meanwhile, the drug addict in prison started to act up. He changed his testimony and completely denied his murder. He also openly threatened Bondo. This made Bungo unable to keep calm, so Bongo beat him up. Bai once again exposed his weakness for Jiangsu to grasp. Jiangsu was scolded by his superiors, so he had to quickly end these things. At the same time, Jiangsu turned around and put pressure on Byongo. The first person Jongo had to investigate was Young Pill's secretary. He was the one who carried out the tasks on behalf of Young Pill, so he would definitely know all the bad things behind it. Meanwhile, Bongo still had to play the role of a spy. What Byongo didn't expect was that Miho also betrayed him at this time. Miho was already a cruel killer. While Young Pill and his gang boss were arguing, no one dared to intervene. Everyone just thought they were threatening each other and didn't want to attack the other. Unexpectedly, Miho suddenly drove his car towards the gang boss. Not stopping there, Miho continued to step on the gas with the intention of not letting him survive. Miho's actions satisfied Young Pill. Since then, Young Pill has trusted Miho more. On the contrary, Young Pill had long suspected Bondo of betrayal. Young Pill knew that Bondo had returned to the prosecutors, so he kicked Bondo aside. Young Pill wanted to prove to Bondo that no matter what happened, he could handle it. Young Pill had worked very hard to get to where he was today, so he wouldn't be easily overthrown by others. What's more important is that he has a lot of money. Later, Byongo and the prosecutors discovered Young Pill's source of money. That day, Bondo was assigned to follow Young Pill's secretary. They were planning something shady, but they absolutely did not let Byongo participate. So, Byongo used his identity as an inspector to threaten them. But Byongo encountered stubborn people. They were reckless and extremely hated people like Bongdu. So when they met Bongo, they immediately rushed to cause trouble. Even though Byongo had a gun in his hand, he could not threaten them. Young Pill's secretary stood next to him and tried to stop him, but he could not stop the fight. Bai told Young Pill's secretary about the prosecutor's plan. As a result, Byongo was considered a traitor to everyone, and they beat him up. The prosecutors were fooled by Byongo, so they missed Young Pill's secretary. But when they were angry, Byongo was just as angry. He was furious and went to find the thugs from earlier to beat them up. He didn't expect them to dare to beat him up like this. Those guys were much more reckless than he thought. It seemed like they wanted to kill him and had no intention of letting him go. Bai was cornered to the point where he couldn't fight back. Luckily, after fighting with them on the street, he was still intact. But the other thugs weren't like that. Bingo ran over to teach them a lesson. When he realized what they were transporting in the car, he was stunned when he saw the pile of drugs mixed with fruit. It turned out that this was the source of money that Young Pill had been using for his plans. But that didn't mean anything when Young Pill's secretary had accepted all the charges against him. Young Pill was still innocent, and he would do anything to keep it that way. Young Pill had chosen someone to replace Bong Do everything. That person did his job well. The addict in the closet who didn't know how to keep quiet would have someone to help him keep quiet forever. Bai actions not only didn't help Jiangsu, but also messed everything up. Jiangsu was out of patience with Byongo, so he started to switch from talking to action. He didn't expect them to be able to do things that only cold-blooded people could do. After torturing him, they switched to negotiating because only Bungo could drag Young Pill down. His wife had surgery, but she couldn't survive. That was something Bongo knew in advance, but he never gave up hope. She knew what Jongo did to Young Pill, but she never blamed him. Even though he wasn't a good husband, leaving this world was the best way to free her from the pain caused by the disease. Bio had nothing left to lose, so he decided to tell them everything. Bai went to see Young Pill, but he was treated like a stranger. Bai didn't care about that. He just wanted to see Young Pill. Bai Du wanted to ask Young Pill why he turned him into the person he was now. Then Young Pill kicked Bai Young Du into a corner. Looking at Young Pill's face, Bong Du couldn't help but reveal his plan. It turned out that Bong Du came here with a purpose. Bai Dod wanted to lure Young Pill to tell all his crimes. The purpose was to help Jiangsu, but Jongo's actions really confused them. They wanted Byongo to be a traitor, so he would give them what they wanted. Those who wanted to fight each other would have the opportunity to meet directly without having to go through anyone else. Young Pill made an appointment to meet Jiangsu to talk. Jiangsu had no other choice, because Miho brought people to him to threaten him. A tense meeting arranged by Jiang Du disrupted everything. Unexpectedly, one day, criminals had the opportunity to negotiate with those who wanted to capture them. When Young Pill thought he was safe, he revealed his plot. Young Pill intended to use money to bribe Jiangsu to become his man. Before meeting, both of them had their own plot. Jiangsu was not someone who was blinded by money. If Jiangsu was greedy for money, he would not have confronted Young Pil from the beginning. But Jiangsu was also a cunning person because he had trapped Young Pil into telling everything. After Young Pil realized he was deceived, he decided to make the final choice. It turned out that Young Pil had prepared for the worst. Young Pil had hired people who were dissatisfied with the government to kill those who stood in his way. They were cold-blooded people who were willing to kill anyone for a living. At this time, Byongo was trying to convince Miho to turn to him, but Miho was blinded by money, so he no longer knew what was right or wrong. Young ordered Miho to kill Bong, due since Miho knew Byongo betrayed them. But because of their brotherly love, Miho was not allowed to do so. But they were on two different sides and Miho had no other choice. If he did not do it, someone else would. After Bango knew that he could not convince Miho, he had to find a way to save his life. The two had a conflict right after that. Only the winner was allowed to survive. Even though Byongo was his senior, he could not defeat Miho. As a result, Byongo had to lie there for Miho to decide. But at the crucial moment, Miho could not take action. They were once brothers, and that love was incomparable. However, if Byongo did not die, Miho had to die. Miho did not believe that Jiangsu could overthrow Young Pil. Therefore, in the end, Miho still decided to end Byongo's life. After a while of struggling, Byongo accidentally shot at Miho. As a result, Byongo killed his own men. Everything was caused by Young Pil and Jiangsu. So, Jianggo will end everything here. At this time, Jiangsu and his men are being brutally hunted down. Those reckless people treat them like objects to kill. They do not spare anyone because they think that these people are the ones who stole their food and clothes. Jiangsu is no longer arrogant, so he has to kneel down and beg Pil to keep his life. If he wants to do that, Jiangsu must prove his loyalty. A person who always hates criminals like Jiangsu today has to play the role of those people. At this moment, Byongo appears and stops Jiangsu from killing his colleagues. Seeing Bongdu, Young Pil's subordinates begin to tremble in fear. He has nothing left to lose, so no one knows how much he can risk his life. Baidu had a gun in his hand, so he brazenly fought against everyone alone. Even though he had to suffer many injuries, that was no problem for him. Bai had to make him pay for what he had done to Bongo's life. Bio dealt with each of his subordinates one by one. Even though Bongo encountered many difficulties, he still held out until the end. Because Young Pil was still standing there intact. Bai Young do not die before he had overthrown Young Pil. No matter how much power and money Young Pil had, he could not use it in this situation. Young Pil could only rely on himself to survive and get out of here. No one knew how many injuries Bong Du had suffered since he started this war. Bong Du no longer had the strength to fight back against Young Pil. This time, Bungo came up with a new scenario where Bungo was the one to bear everything. But Young Pil will not get his wish because he will not be able to leave here. Thanks to Jiangsu using his last breath to hold Young Pil back. Baidu took the opportunity to end his life full of crimes with a bullet in the middle of his forehead. After Zhang Du watched Young Pil fall, he was completely exhausted. Young Pil shed tears before he left this world. It was a tear of regret, but it was not too late. Anyway, he had redeemed part of his mistakes before closing his eyes. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.